My mother-in-law Dolores stood over the trash can holding my daughter's unicorn birthday cake like it was contaminated waste. The 3 layers of vanilla cake I'd spent hours decorating were about to meet coffee grounds and last night's leftovers. "She doesn't deserve a celebration," she announced to everyone at my 7-year-old's party. The words cut through the happy birthday song we'd been singing just seconds before. My husband Craig just stood there, silent as always, his hands frozen mid-clap while our daughter Rosalie watched her grandmother destroy what was supposed to be the highlight of her special day. The other parents gasped. The children went quiet. But what happened next made Dolores wish she'd never stepped foot in our house. I'm Bethany, and I'm about to tell you how my 7-year-old daughter outsmarted the woman who'd been making our lives miserable for years. I'm 34 years old, an elementary school teacher who thought I understood kids pretty well until my own daughter showed me what real courage looks like. My daughter Rosalie had just turned 7 that day. She's the kind of kid who names her stuffed animals after Supreme Court justices and insists on reading the news with me every morning. Smart doesn't even begin to cover it. She has this way of observing everything while pretending to be absorbed in her coloring books or tablet games. Craig, my husband of 9 years, works as a software developer for a tech startup downtown. He's 36, brilliant with computers, terrible with confrontation. He's the guy who apologizes when someone else steps on his foot. I fell in love with his gentleness, but that same quality meant he never stood up to the one person who needed standing up to the most. That person was Dolores, age 62, retired bank manager, and professional destroyer of joy. She had opinions about everything from how I folded fitted sheets to how many vegetables should be on Rosalie's plate. In her world, children should be seen, not heard, and definitely not celebrated unless they'd earned it through academic perfection and complete obedience. The birthday party was supposed to be simple. 3 kids from Rosalie's new school, their parents, us, and Dolores. 12 people total in our Portland home, with paper butterfly decorations and a homemade cake. But Dolores had other plans. She always had other plans. What she didn't know was that Rosalie had been planning something too. For weeks, my daughter had been working on what she called her special project on her tablet. Every time I asked about it, she'd give me this little smile and say it was for school. Craig thought it was probably another one of her creative writing stories. We were both wrong. The moment Dolores dropped that cake in the trash, I saw something change in Rosalie's face. The tears were there. Yes, but behind them was something else. A look I recognized from my own childhood when I finally decided I'd had enough of being pushed around. She wiped her eyes, walked over to her tablet, and said the words that would change everything. "Grandma, I made you a special video. Want to see it?" I should have known something was wrong when Dolores arrived at Rosalie's birthday party, carrying nothing but her oversized purse and that familiar look of disapproval. She walked through our front door at exactly 2 p.m., surveying our living room like a health inspector who'd already decided to fail the restaurant. No gift bag, no card, not even a half-hearted balloon from the dollar store. The morning had started so differently. Rosalie bounced into our bedroom at 6 a.m., wearing her favorite purple dress, the one with tiny silver stars that she'd picked out specially for today. "Mommy, do you think Grandma Dolores will like my surprise?" she asked, clutching her tablet against her chest like a treasure. For the past month, she'd been secretly working on something she called her appreciation project for school. Every time I walked into her room, she'd quickly minimize the screen and start playing some game about digital pets. "I'm sure she'll love whatever you made, sweetheart," I told her, though the words felt heavy with doubt. Dolores hadn't loved anything we'd done in the 3 years since we'd moved to Portland for Craig's job. Our small craftsman house was transformed for the occasion. Rosalie and I had spent 3 evenings cutting and folding paper butterflies in every shade of purple and pink. We'd strung them from fishing line across the ceiling, and when the afternoon light hit them through the windows, they cast dancing shadows on the walls. The dining table wore my grandmother's lace tablecloth, and I'd set it with mismatched vintage plates I'd collected from estate sales and thrift stores. Each plate told a story, had a history, just like I wanted Rosalie to understand that imperfect things could still be beautiful. The centerpiece of it all was the cake. I'd stayed up until 2 a.m. the night before, carefully piping buttercream roses and sculpting a fondant unicorn with a rainbow mane. 3 layers of vanilla cake with strawberry filling, Rosalie's favorite. She'd drawn me a picture of exactly what she wanted, down to the unicorn's pink hooves and golden horn. "Remember when Grandma said unicorns are silly and I'm too old for them?" Rosalie had asked while we were mixing the batter together 2 days earlier. "I remember," I said, letting her lick the spoon. "I still want one. Maybe when she sees how pretty it is, she'll understand why I love them." That morning, Craig was conveniently busy in the garage, supposedly getting ice but really just avoiding the pre-party preparations. He'd been doing that more lately, finding reasons to be elsewhere when his mother's visits loomed. His weekly calls with her had become exercises in deflection. "Mom's just traditional," he'd say after hanging up, rubbing his temples. "She means well." But meaning well and doing well are 2 different things, and Dolores had been steadily chipping away at our family since the day Craig proposed to me. "A teacher?" she'd said when he told her my profession. "Well, I suppose someone has to do it." As if shaping young minds was equivalent to mopping floors. My parents lived across the country in Boston, too far to make it for every birthday, but never too far to send love. They'd shipped a package that arrived 3 days early with strict instructions not to open until the big day. My sister Nadine was supposed to fly in from Chicago, but her flight got canceled due to storms. She'd FaceTime that morning, singing happy birthday while Rosalie ate her special birthday pancakes shaped like butterflies. "Give Dolores hell," Nadine had whispered to me when Rosalie ran off to get dressed. "She's Craig's mother." "I have to try," I whispered back. "You've been trying for 9 years, Beth. When's he going to try?" The invited guests were intentionally limited. 3 kids from Rosalie's new school were coming with their parents. Indigo, a boy with bright red hair who shared Rosalie's love of astronomy. Waverly, a quiet girl who'd been teaching Rosalie origami at recess. And Jasper, the class clown who made my daughter laugh until milk came out her nose. Their parents were the kind of people who brought homemade cookies to PTA meetings and actually volunteered for field trips. I'd spent the morning arranging everything perfectly. Party favors in small purple bags, each containing a handmade butterfly clip, some candy, and a small notebook because Rosalie insisted her friends would love them. The playlist was carefully curated with songs about birthdays, dreams, and magic. Even our ancient golden retriever, Biscuit, wore a festive bandana. Craig emerged from the garage carrying exactly 1 bag of ice, wearing the same resigned expression he always wore before his mother's visits. "She's going to find something wrong," he said, not meeting my eyes. "She always does," I replied, straightening Rosalie's special birthday crown one more time. "But today's not about her." How wrong I was. It was about to become all about Dolores, just not in the way any of us expected. The trouble started the moment Dolores walked through the door. She surveyed the decorations with pursed lips, her eyes tracking across every paper butterfly like she was calculating the waste of time and money they represented. "All this for a 7-year-old? Bethany, this is excessive. Children in my day were grateful for a simple cake and family dinner." "Mom, please," Craig muttered from behind his coffee mug, his standard defensive position. "It's her birthday." And last month, it was her half-birthday. And before that, a celebration for losing her first tooth. You're raising an entitled princess who expects the world to revolve around her. Rosalie, who had been carefully arranging party favors on the coffee table, heard every word. I watched her shoulders drop slightly, but she kept working, placing each bag with the same precision she used for everything. That's when I noticed she'd placed a special party hat at Dolores' spot at the table, one she'd decorated herself with "World's Best Grandma," written in silver glitter glue. She'd spent an hour on it last night, her tongue poking out in concentration as she made sure each letter was perfect. The other families arrived in quick succession. The Johnsons with Indigo, who immediately ran to show Rosalie his new telescope app. The Patels with Waverly, carrying a gift wrapped in paper she'd painted herself. The Turners with Jasper, who burst through the door already telling jokes. The parents gravitated toward the kitchen where I'd set up drinks and appetizers, making the polite conversation that flows between people who know each other through their children. Dolores positioned herself in the corner chair like a queen holding court, occasionally making pronouncements to anyone within earshot. In my generation, children played outside instead of staring at screens. she announced when Indigo showed the kids his tablet. "Sugar is poison for developing minds," she declared as Waverly's mom helped herself to a cupcake. "Children today have no discipline," she observed when Jasper laughed too loudly at his own joke. Craig floated between rooms, refilling drinks and avoiding eye contact with everyone. I caught him in the kitchen during one of his escapes. "Can you please talk to your mother? She's making everyone uncomfortable." "She's just being herself," he said, which was exactly the problem. "Then be yourself for once and tell her to stop." He opened his mouth to respond, but we heard Dolores's voice rise from the living room. "Rosalie, posture. You're slouching like a common street child." I returned to find my daughter sitting ramrod straight, her party crown slightly askew, trying to maintain perfect posture while playing a board game with her friends. The other parents exchanged glances. Waverly's mom moved closer to the children, creating a subtle barrier between them and Dolores. For an hour, we maintained this uneasy peace. The kids played Pin the Horn on the Unicorn, which Dolores called encouraging delusion about mythical creatures. They did face painting, which she deemed teaching vanity. They played musical chairs, which she labeled promoting aggressive competition. Then came time for the cake. I dimmed the lights and carried it in from the kitchen, the 7 candles plus 1 for good luck, casting a warm glow on Rosalie's expectant face. Everyone started singing, even Craig managing to raise his voice above a whisper. Rosalie closed her eyes, ready to make her wish. That's when Dolores stood up. "Stop this nonsense right now." Her voice cut through the singing like a blade. The room fell silent instantly. "This child got a C on her spelling test last week, Craig told me himself, and she's being rewarded with this spectacle? This is what's wrong with your generation, Bethany. No consequences, no standards, just endless celebration of mediocrity." "Mom, that's enough," Craig said weakly, but his mother was already moving. "No, it's not enough. Someone needs to teach this child that rewards must be earned through excellence, not just existence." Before anyone could react, she grabbed the entire cake with both hands, plate and all. She marched into the kitchen with the determination of someone on a moral crusade. We all stood frozen as she held it over the trash can. "She doesn't deserve a celebration," Dolores announced. Then she dropped it. The cake hit the trash with a wet thud. The fondant unicorn's head broke off and rolled across the coffee grounds and orange peels. Pink and purple frosting smeared against the plastic bag. 3 layers of carefully baked love disappeared into the garbage. The room was silent except for Biscuit whimpering from his bed. Indigo's mom covered her mouth with both hands. Waverly started crying. Jasper, the class clown, stood perfectly still for maybe the first time in his life. But all I could see was Rosalie's face. Tears pooled in her eyes but didn't fall, as if she was willing them to stay put through sheer determination. Her bottom lip trembled as she stared at the trash can where her birthday cake, her magical unicorn cake that she'd designed and dreamed about, lay in ruins among the household garbage. Craig stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "Mom, that was completely inappropriate. You shouldn't have done that." "Someone had to be the adult here," Dolores replied, brushing imaginary crumbs from her hands with the satisfaction of someone who'd just performed a public service. "When children fail, they face consequences. That's how they learn." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab Dolores by her perfectly styled gray hair and drag her out of my house. My hands actually shook with the effort of keeping them at my sides. Every maternal instinct in my body roared to life, demanding I protect my child, defend her, do something, anything to erase the hurt on her face. Indigo's dad stepped forward. "Mrs. Dolores, I think you should apologize. That was cruel." "Cruel is letting a child believe she's special when she's average," Dolores shot back. "Cruel is setting her up for a lifetime of disappointment when the real world doesn't hand out prizes for participation." "She's 7 years old," Waverly's mom exclaimed, pulling her daughter closer. "Old enough to learn that actions have consequences. A C in spelling? In my day, that meant no dessert for a month, let alone a party." Craig finally found words again, though they came out strangled. The spelling test was on advanced words. The teacher said she did well considering they'd just started the unit. "Excuses," Dolores waved him off. "You always make excuses for them both." That's when I saw something unexpected happen on Rosalie's face. The tears that had been threatening to fall suddenly stopped. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and then she smiled. Not a sad smile or a forced one, but the same mischievous grin she got when she figured out the answer to a difficult puzzle or successfully pulled off a magic trick she'd been practicing. "Grandma Dolores," she said, her voice surprisingly steady and clear. "I understand you're disappointed in me, but I made something special for you. Can I show you? Please?" Dolores huffed, adjusting her purse strap. "I suppose, though I don't see how anything could excuse this behavior and these grades." "It's a video," Rosalie interrupted, her excitement seeming genuine as she ran to get her tablet from the living room. She handled it carefully, like it contained something precious. "I made it for school, but it's really for you. My teacher, Mrs. Chen, said it was the best project in the class. I got an A+ on it." That caught Dolores's attention. Her eyebrows raised slightly. "An A+? Well, why didn't anyone mention this earlier?" "Because it was supposed to be a surprise for today," Rosalie said, connecting the tablet to our smart TV with practiced ease. "I've been working on it for a whole month, every day after school, sometimes during lunch too." Craig looked at me questioningly. I shrugged, as confused as he was. Rosalie had mentioned a school project, but she'd been secretive about the details. "It's called The Important Women in My Life," Rosalie announced, navigating to her files with quick fingers. "You're the star, Grandma. The whole thing is about you and what you've taught me." Dolores's expression shifted from irritation to intrigue, then to something approaching pleasure. She smoothed her skirt and sat down in the prime viewing spot on our couch, directly facing the TV. "Well, I must say this is unexpected. At least someone recognizes the importance of honoring your elders." "Oh, you're definitely honored in this," Rosalie said, and something in her tone made me look at her more closely. There was a glint in her eye I'd seen before, usually right before she checkmated Craig in chess or revealed she'd known about her Christmas presents all along. The other parents remained standing awkwardly, unsure whether to stay or leave. Jasper's mom started to gather their things, but Rosalie turned to them. "Please stay. Everyone should see this. It's educational." "Yes, stay," Dolores commanded, now fully invested in being the center of attention. "Perhaps you'll all learn something about proper values and the importance of grandmother figures in children's lives." Craig moved closer to me, perhaps sensing the shift in atmosphere. Even Biscuit had emerged from his bed, tail wagging tentatively as if the tension in the room had lifted. Rosalie stood by the TV like a tiny presenter, her birthday crown still slightly crooked but her bearing confident. This took a lot of research. I had to gather what Mrs. Chen called primary sources. "Do you know what those are, Grandma?" "Of course I do," Dolores sniffed. "Original documents and first-hand evidence." "Exactly," Rosalie beamed. "And I found so much evidence. So much. You're going to be amazed at how much I learned from watching you." She pressed play with a flourish, then stepped back to stand between Craig and me. I felt her small hand slip into mine, and she squeezed it 3 times. Our secret code for "I love you." The TV screen came to life with the cheerful opening notes of what sounded like a children's educational program theme song. The video opened with cheerful music and the title in colorful letters, "The Important Women in My Life" by Rosalie Mitchell. Then Rosalie's recorded voice began sweet and clear. "The most important woman in my life is my Grandma Dolores. I want to show everyone why she's so special and what she's taught me about life." Dolores preened, sitting up straighter and casting a satisfied look around the room. "Well, it's about time someone recognized my contributions to this family." The screen transitioned to a photo of Dolores at last year's Christmas dinner, looking regal in her navy dress. Rosalie's voiceover continued, "My Grandma Dolores has taught me so many important lessons. Let me share them with you." Then the first video clip played. The image was slightly shaky, clearly filmed from tablet height. The date stamp showed Thanksgiving just 6 months ago. Dolores's voice rang out crystal clear. "That child is manipulative just like her mother. She cries to get attention. It's pathetic, really. 7 years old and still acting like a baby whenever things don't go her way." The video showed Dolores sitting in our living room, talking on her phone while I was in the bathroom. The angle revealed something else. Rosalie visible in the reflection of the china cabinet glass, curled up on the couch where she was supposedly napping, tears streaming down her face as she heard every word. Dolores went white. "How did you get this?" But the video continued. The next clip was from Christmas morning, a FaceTime call Dolores didn't know was being recorded. Craig married beneath him, obviously. Bethany can't cook properly, can't keep house to any decent standard, and she's raising a spoiled brat. I'm embarrassed to tell my friends about them. When they ask about my son's family, I change the subject. The room was absolutely silent except for the TV. Even the children seemed to understand something significant was happening. Another clip rolled. Dolores at Rosalie's school play 2 months ago, talking to another grandmother in the lobby. She can't even remember her lines properly. No talent whatsoever, just like her mother. Not like my friend Margaret's granddaughter, who's already been accepted to the gifted program. Now there's a child with actual potential. Rosalie's probably going to be average her whole life. Maybe below average if she takes after Bethany's side. Craig made a sound like he'd been punched. His face had gone from confused to horrified as he watched his mother destroy his daughter with surgical precision. The clips kept coming, each one worse than the last. Dolores telling her hairdresser that Rosalie was chunky and would probably have weight problems like all the women on Bethany's side. Dolores on the phone with her sister saying Craig was too weak to divorce me, but she was working on it. Dolores at a restaurant with her book club, describing how she was documenting every parenting mistake I made for future custody hearings if Craig ever comes to his senses. But the worst was the last one. The timestamp showed just 2 weeks ago. Dolores was in our guest room, her voice clear and deliberate. "I'm thinking of telling Craig to file for divorce while Rosalie's still young enough to forget Bethany, get full custody and start over with someone more suitable. That woman and her daughter are dragging him down socially and financially. Rosalie's probably not even going to amount to anything with those genes. Bad breeding always shows, eventually. Maybe if Craig remarries someone with better genetics, the next child will have a chance at success." The video transitioned to a new scene. Rosalie appeared on screen, sitting at her desk in her bedroom, looking directly at the camera. "My grandma Dolores taught me important lessons. She taught me that words can hurt worse than falling off my bike. She taught me that family isn't always kind. She taught me that some people smile at you while saying mean things about you when they think you can't hear." The Rosalie on screen held up her tablet. "But the most important thing she taught me was to always stand up for myself and my mommy. She taught me that bullies come in all shapes and sizes, even grandmother sizes. And she taught me that evidence is important when dealing with someone who lies about being nice." The video ended with credits rolling over happy music. Special thanks to my tablet's voice-activated recording feature, cloud storage, and Mrs. Chen who taught us about documenting sources. Also, thank you to Mommy for always hugging me after Grandma's visits, even when she didn't know I needed them. The final screen showed a dedication. This video is dedicated to all kids who have relatives that pretend to love them, but actually don't. You're not alone, and it's not your fault. The TV went black. The room remained completely silent. Dolores's face had gone from white to red. Dolores grabbed her purse with shaking hands, her knuckles white as she clutched the leather straps. "This is an invasion of privacy. This is illegal. Craig, your daughter invaded my privacy and you're going to let her get away with this?" My daughter," Craig interrupted, and his voice had a strength I hadn't heard in 9 years of marriage, "just showed me what a fool I've been. What kind of coward I've been. Mom, you threw her birthday cake in the trash. You've been poisoning our family for years, and I let it happen because I was too afraid to stand up to you, too afraid to protect the 2 people who matter most to me." "You're taking their side?" Dolores shrieked, standing up so fast she knocked over a glass of water on the coffee table. "After everything I've done for you?" "What have you done, Mom? Tell me. Because what I just saw was you systematically trying to destroy my wife's confidence and my daughter's self-esteem. You called my 7-year-old manipulative. You said she had bad genes. You talked about taking her away from her mother. What kind of grandmother does that?" Dolores turned to the other parents, seeking support. "This is a setup. They coached her to do this to humiliate me." Indigo's mom stepped forward. "Ma'am, no one could coach that kind of pain. We all saw that little girl crying on the couch while you talked about her like she was garbage. That was real." "You don't understand," Dolores sputtered. "I was trying to help them improve." "By calling me fat?" Rosalie asked quietly. "By saying I'll never amount to anything? By trying to make Daddy divorce Mommy?" Dolores stormed toward the door, then turned back for one final attack. "You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone what you've done. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of child you're raising." "Good," I said, finding my voice at last. "Tell them about the 7-year-old who stood up to a bully. Tell them about the little girl who was brave enough to show the truth. I'm sure that story will go exactly how you think it will." Dolores slammed the door so hard that 3 paper butterflies fell from the ceiling, drifting down like purple snow. The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then Indigo started clapping. His parents joined in, then Waverly's family, then the Turners. Soon everyone was applauding, and Rosalie took a little bow, her crown finally falling off completely. "Mrs. Mitchell," Waverly's mom said, reaching into her large tote bag, "I have an extra cake in my car. I always bring a backup because I have anxiety about disasters. Would you like me to get it?" 20 minutes later, we were singing Happy Birthday again, this time around a store-bought chocolate cake that tasted like freedom. Craig held my hand throughout the song, squeezing it occasionally as if to apologize for years of silence. When Rosalie blew out her candles, everyone cheered twice as loud as before. After the guests left, I found Rosalie in her room, writing in her journal. She showed me the entry. "Today I turned 7. Grandma threw my cake away, but I got something better." Daddy finally stood up for us. He used his loud voice. "Best birthday ever." Then she showed me the next line. "P.S. Mrs." Chen didn't really assign that project, but she did say I should document bullying whenever I see it. I think I documented it pretty good. "Rosalie, how long were you recording Grandma?" "Since Christmas, when she made you cry in the bathroom. I heard you, Mommy. That's when I started keeping evidence. Mrs. Chen taught us about evidence in our justice unit." 6 months have passed since that birthday. Dolores sent one letter through a lawyer claiming we'd violated her privacy rights. Our lawyer, Nadine's husband, laughed and explained that Oregon is a one-party consent state. Rosalie had done nothing illegal by recording conversations she was part of. Craig goes to therapy now every Thursday at 4 p.m. He's learning to use his voice, to set boundaries, to protect instead of just provide. Last week, he told his boss he wouldn't work weekends anymore. "My daughter is growing up fast," he said. "I won't miss it." Rosalie started a kindness club at school where kids document acts of kindness instead of cruelty. Her teacher gave her a real A+ this time for her presentation on standing up to bullies even when they're family. The local news even did a story about it, though we kept the details of Grandma Dolores private. The unicorn birthday cake became legendary in our neighborhood. Sometimes other moms stop me at the grocery store to say they heard about what happened and good for us for standing up for ourselves. But the best moment came last week when Rosalie asked me, "Mommy, do you think I was mean to Grandma?" "No, sweetheart, you showed the truth. That's not mean, that's brave." She smiled and went back to her homework, then looked up again. "Maybe someday Grandma will say sorry and we can try again." That's my daughter. Even after everything, her heart stays open to the possibility of change, of redemption, of love winning in the end. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that. Standing up to family bullies is not only okay, it's necessary. Drop a comment below about a time you or someone you know stood up to difficult family members. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about families finding their courage, kids teaching adults about bravery, and the power of truth told at exactly the right moment. Remember, sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths.